America and American consumers have taken a pitiful turn when it comes to debt and being able to afford an automobile. Once the world's superpower, the United States of America, and once the big player in automobile manufacturing, well, now most people can't even afford an automobile without taking a extended loan. And in fact, even loans more than 72 months has surged to now more than 35% of borrowers have to go with an 84-month term on their automobile loan. So it's a very pitiful and sad term, but let's take a look at how we got here. But first, let's take a look at some of the recent numbers here. Recent article out of Reuters. U.S. consumers borrow more for longer to drive trucks and SUVs. Let's take a look at some of these sad statistics right here in this article. From this article, U.S. consumers borrowed more for longer in the first quarter of 2021 so they could drive more expensive trucks and SUVs. At the same time, average credit scores for consumers who finance new and used vehicles are higher. All right, now let's take a pause right there. Think about that for a minute. So Americans are going deeper into debt, getting terms that are now 60, 72 months, 84 months are now really common, but yet credit scores are getting better. Isn't it interesting how it works that the more debt you take on, the better your credit score gets? Now take a look at these recent prices here, these updated price reports here. The average amount financed to buy a new car rose to $35,392 from $33,833 a year ago. About a $1,500 increase in the cost of a new car in 1 year. So the days of sitting back and trying to save up to buy a car are over with, because if you sit back and try to save money before you make your purchase, by the time you've saved up money, the car is just going to be a lot more expensive when you do finally save up the money. So people are just splurging, they're going into debt. And look at this, this is really sad. The share of new vehicle loans longer than 72 months rose to over 35% of total finances. So over 1/3 of people taking out loans now longer than 72 months. 72 months is bad enough, right? 72 months is 6 years, right? So we're talking 78-month and 84-month loans. We started seeing this trend a few years back where people were taking more 6-year loans, more 7-year loans, but it's continuing to get worse. So not only are people taking on more debt, it's for extended terms, and you're going to pay a higher interest rate over those extended terms. But don't worry, the bank, they won't mind taking in all that extra interest payment from you. Now, why do we say this is pitiful? Well, America, we used to be the major manufacturer for automobiles. Now, although the automobile was first invented and perfected in Germany and France in the late 1800s, America quickly became to dominate the automobile industry in the first half of the 20th century. And Henry Ford innovated mass production techniques that became the standard, and companies like Ford, GM, and Chrysler emerged as the big three automobile companies way back in the 1920s. But since then, what has happened? We're no longer the major manufacturer for automobiles. And we're not even close. We're actually in second place, but China now produces twice as many cars as the US, pumping out about 25 million per year, and we're just under 11 million per year. Right? So even right now, at second place as far as the leading manufacturer for automobiles worldwide, the United States. Is pretty pitiful, though, that consumers have to go into this much debt for a product that we develop here in the US and that we manufacture quite a lot of, over 10 million a year. Now, you would think with so much debt and so many people having to take these extended loans at higher interest rates that people would be behind in getting their cars repossessed a lot more. But remember, when the Great Sickness rolled out, a lot of states put in moratoriums for car repossessions. Now, there's been a lot of assistance pumped out to the American people to help them maintain their car payments. For example, we have about 19 million Americans that live in households that are not paying their mortgages or their rents. And also the stimulus checks and the enhanced unemployment benefits have allowed people to pay more or to continue to pay on their car loans. If any of that assistance ever gets pulled back, then guess what? You're likely to see a tsunami of car repossessions. Right? So it's another part of the economy that is reliant on payouts to the people. Now, also on the topic of being one of the major car manufacturers in the world behind China, that doesn't translate to jobs, especially because we have the automobile industry is so heavily geared towards automation now, and it's one of the industries and one of the manufacturing techniques that's the most heavily reliant on robotics. And now we see robotics spreading to other parts of the economy. For example, warehouses now are heavily looking to robotics to fill labor gaps and to speed up delivery. So you're likely going to see the job situation here in America continue to deteriorate unless you want to count entry-level fast food, leisure, and hospitality jobs as good jobs. But most of us know those jobs don't pay enough typically to even make the median rent in most US cities. And we can't really blame these companies for wanting to go more towards robotics. Part of it's greed. But when you look at the population of the United States, most people are on some sort of drug or medication. That's right, Americans are druggies. Look at this article. About 70% of Americans take at least one prescription medication. 70%. Now, I would have to find a study on this, but it looks to me like America is probably one of the most drugged out countries in the world as far as the number of people that are taking some sort of drug or medication. And ask yourself, if you ran a business, would you want to have robots do most of the work, or 7 out of 10 people, trying to hire somebody that's not on some sort of medication? All right, now let's transition a little bit here, because sometimes people say I'm just full of negative and bad news. Well, I'm just reporting the facts here. But there is one area, one spot as far as debt and borrowing that people are paying off some debt. So U.S. credit card debt falls, but at the same time as home and car loan debt hits record levels. Now, why is credit card debt falling? Well, probably because the shutdowns. But I suspect, and let me know if you agree with this, I suspect that as soon as people find out that the amusement parks are opening back up, that their favorite bars and nightclubs and restaurants are opening back up, I suspect that credit card debt's going to start climbing once again. People love to rush out to the amusement park and give their money to Mickey Mouse or Goofy. And heck, why not go spend the money? Because next year, going to party with Mickey Mouse and Goofy and riding rides might be twice as expensive with the rising prices that we're seeing pretty much everywhere. All right, so it seems like we've got to spend now, or it might be more expensive later type of mentality here in the U.S. On one hand, maybe that's a good strategy. If prices continue to climb, what you don't buy today might cost a lot more tomorrow. So who knows how high this is going to go? Will hyperinflation finally end us here in the United States? And remember, there is a collapse happening right now. There is a crash. No, prices aren't crashing, but the purchasing power of the U.S. dollar is crashing. There is a crash. There is a collapse, but it's a lot different than most people expected. It's an inflationary collapse and drop in your purchasing power. Thanks everybody for being here for this report. Let me know what you think about this surge in automobile loans, not just 72 months, but 84 months. Thanks everybody for being here. Stay well, stay safe, keep stacking, stay well. Bye for now. Peace.